Welcome, everybody. I am so thrilled to be here today with you in this wonderful presentation that we are going to do for hospitality leaders and those in the private club industry. We're going to give you 3 ways that you can increase your emotional intelligence and regulate your emotions so that you can prevent burnout, improve your culture, and elevate your guest or member experience. So, first and foremost, I want you to ask yourself, how many times have you walked into a shift and immediately felt that energy? Nobody said anything, but you instantly knew that you could feel stress, you could feel frustration, you could feel tension, perhaps burnout or chaos. And then now I want you to think of the other side of the coin, where you have walked into work or you've walked into a shift and you have felt confident. You could feel the confidence, you can feel the calm, you can feel the focus, you can feel the alignment, the teamwork. The truth is this: people do not follow titles. People follow emotional states. As leaders, whether we realize this or not, our nervous system becomes the thermostat for the entire team. If we are reactive, the team then becomes reactive. If we are regulated, the team becomes regulated in most cases. And if they cannot regulate, they leave. And quite frankly, they are not aligned. It will become that situation. So today I'm going to teach you 3 tools that help you as a leader regulate yourself before you begin regulating everyone else. That is how it goes. You must regulate yourself first in order to anticipate and require your team to show up in their fullest. So, number 1, we're going to share with you a tool called pausing the pattern. This is the 90-second rule. So, most leaders' mistakes happen because we react before we think. I want you to think about this on a personal level as well as on a level of mastery that you may have as a leader in the hospitality industry. Now, a lot of times what we see is the leader has mastered this within the ecosystem of the workspace in most cases, not always. And then at home, maybe dealing with the inability to do this quite regularly. And of course, true colors kind of come out. So we want to talk about this. We want to talk about this pattern. So we want to pause the pattern. So as I mentioned, most leadership mistakes happen because we react before we think. So a guest complains, an employee has an issue, an employee is not receiving feedback, there's an unexpected problem. Immediately, we might, as a leader, you might defend, you might blame, you might explain, you might overreact, you might bottle it up and just do it yourself. Gosh, I was like the queen of that. Just, I'll do it. I'll do it. No one could do it as good as me. But research shows that emotions create a chemical response that lasts roughly 90 seconds. So the emotion isn't the problem. The problem is what we're doing during those 90 seconds. So a guest might say to you, or a member, this has been the worst experience I've had all year. You may feel embarrassed. You could feel angry. You could feel defensive. You might even start people pleasing. Okay, that's another default that is often so over, it's skipped because it looks so pretty on the outside, but it's called fawning. You in this place, you are reacting from a place of emotion. It's a it is, and what I'm saying here is that you're going into a state of fight, flight, or freeze. And what we want is the elite leader to show up. The elite leader pauses before they react. So you might have these emotions come up. And let's use another example. You know, you're about to receive feedback. You may feel nervous, you may feel stressed out, you may feel angry, but or confused, or start having all these stories in your head. But what we want to do is we want to provide you with tools so that you do not have those emotions take over. So the tool when we are triggered is to stop, breathe, name the emotion, and then wait 90 seconds. So when we are triggered, we are going to stop. We're going to breathe. And then emotion might be frustration. It might be anxiety. It might be overwhelm. Name it. I feel overwhelmed. I feel frustrated. Not I am frustrated. I am anxious. I am. No, 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 no. I feel, because it's fleeting. I am is a state of permanence. I am amazing. I am beautiful. I am kind. I am love. I am truth. We're saying, I feel anxious in this moment. I feel annoyed in this moment. It's energy in motion, emotion. Wait 90 seconds. Feel the emotion and ask, what response serves this situation best? Not, how do I defend myself? How do I get out of here? How do I go vent to the chef or vent to my assistant? We don't want that. We want to, how do I respond in this situation that serves them best? Now, there is a serious level of mask that goes on here, especially with a lot of women leaders, where they'll go, okay, yeah, sure. It's this kind of fakeness. So what we want to do is do the same thing in your personal life, same thing with the habits you choose at home. That really matters, because most leaders can nail this, especially if you're at the level you're at. Okay. I'm often using the example of elite athletes. Elite athletes, they're killing it on the field, and they're 4 times more likely to become susceptible to an opiate or prescription drug addiction. Why? Because they are killing it in one area and every other area isn't being felt. So this really matters for you, especially if you are a woman or a man listening and you're like, oh gosh, I do that. I pretend. And like, it's like, oh, the guest doesn't really know, right? So we want to look at that. We want to say, okay, well, let me change myself. I want to become that queen, that calm, regulated queen, not just at work, but at home as well. So respond from leadership, not react from emotion. The second tool that we're going to discuss, naming it to tame it. Name it to tame it, I like to call it. So most leaders have terrible emotional vocabulary. Everything is, I'm stressed, I'm frustrated, I'm overwhelmed, I'm so over this. That's not awareness. This is a vagueness. Okay, so you do need to start looking at this if you have not already. This is the future of where we're headed because of AI. People think AI is coming to take the planet over. AI is going to make you turn into your emotional intelligence. It's going to. It's designed to do that because going it's going to change the way we human, if you will, because most of the things that we needed to rely on before for our brain, we will not need to rely on anymore. And guess what? Humans are very adaptable. So my son is just sending me a message. Give me one moment. So, okay, hold on. Let me just say no to him. He's such a beautiful soul. He's coming home with his friends. And I'm teaching this class. So, okay, so everything becomes, I'm stressed, I'm frustrated, I'm overwhelmed, I'm distracted. That's not awareness, this is vagueness. So why does this matter? Because you can't regulate what you can't identify. If you say, like, for example, a manager might say, I'm angry. Maybe, or maybe they're scared or disappointed or embarrassed or powerless or exhausted or anxious. Each of the emotions that I just named requires a different response. So think about this. Think about your children. Think about your spouse. Think about your the people who work with you. They say, I'm angry. If you yourself as a leader do not have the fundamentals of emotional vocabulary, how can you actually help them to see what they really might be underneath? Ask yourself right now, what am I feeling right now? You might feel called out. You might feel embarrassed. You might feel ashamed. You might feel enlightened. You might feel calm. And then I'm going to ask you, can you get more specific? So your first instinct might be like, I feel annoyed. And then it's like, well, what else do you feel? Well, I feel annoyed about what's going on with my finances right now. I'm making so much money and I can't seem to save money. Or my wife is spending it all, my husband is spending it all. Just it never seems to be enough. What else are you feeling when you think about that? I feel scared. Okay, you're feeling scared. And what else? I feel like I never am good enough. I feel like I'm not good enough. Okay, when you think about when you don't feel good enough, what do you feel then? I feel sad. Okay, so what are you feeling right now? There's nothing lame about this. This is the biggest toolkit you have. It's built into your body. This is literally the biggest toolkit you have. This is 90% of every human makes their decisions through their emotions. This is how vital emotional intelligence is. It is literally deciding that, like you would study the bar to become a lawyer, you're going to understand your own emotional frequency so that you can be a better emotionally intelligent leader. 90% of people that think they have high emotional intelligence have only high awareness. They haven't understood the emotions. So ask these questions daily as a practice. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling that? What does this situation actually need from me? So the awareness creates a choice. The awareness of the emotion creates a choice. If your colleague is coming to you and saying, I'm angry, I feel angry, and you say, okay, you feel angry? What else are you feeling? Well, I feel frustrated because he never listens to me. I can understand that could be frustrating. What else might that make you feel? It just makes me feel It makes me feel like I don't matter. Gosh, okay, that's really heavy. I'm sorry to hear that. Like when you feel like you don't matter, how does that make you feel? Like it makes me feel sad. It makes me feel like I don't like it makes me feel hurt. So when we have awareness, we have choice. Without the awareness, we react. But with awareness, we lead. Because if your colleague came up to you and said, I'm pissed off and I'm angry, and you said, what? What did she do? Well, she did this, this, and this. Okay, cool. Well, we'll talk to her after the shift. You've actually solved nothing. That is general leadership. This is why leadership development is a multi-trillion dollar industry with an extraordinary amount of leaders still feeling confused. Okay. And burnout on the rise, and isolation on the rise, and suicide on the rise in our teens. So we want to create this awareness around the emotion so we can dig in a little bit deeper. Okay. And then the last tool that we're going to be working with today is called Borrow the Future. So this is my favorite hospitality leadership tool. Okay. So when stress hits, ask yourself, how will I handle this tomorrow? How will I handle this 6 months from now? Mm, can't help but think of a recent situation that happened for me. was very stressful. My goodness, money was flying out the opposite direction. I wouldn't say conflict, but I was in a bit of a misalignment with someone. And, I've gone, now we're in 2026, but I've gone the entire year of 2025 up until 2026 without arguing with anybody. Where aside from one person that had a situation with some tickets that I bought for a show, and that was so high level, we ended up coming to a resolution at the end of it. But it doesn't mean that there's not situations that are real life that come in. They come in. You're going to have to deal with real life. But when I stop and I look at this, I always ask myself, like, does this matter? How will I handle this in another 6 months? Like, will this situation really be a major deal in 6 months? No. Does it not mean that there might be things I need to clean up along the way? Yes. So you need to ask yourself, how will I handle this in 6 months? So that your brain exits survival mode. Your perspective then returns and your leadership returns. You can't lead with a clear signal when you are in survival mode. Okay? Now, survival mode might be happening at work and it also might be happening at home or one of the two. So let's stick to the club industry and the hospitality industry. An employee doesn't show up. Kitchen is slammed. Somebody quits. You feel rage. You might just power through, picking up the pieces. But you can stop and for 1 minute and say, okay, how will I wish that I handled this tomorrow? When I wake up tomorrow, how will I have wished that I handled this? Now, you are the king or the queen in the embodiment of being less emotional, less unregulated. You will create better decisions and you will have much better communication. So, the leadership truth when you come into this level is writing tomorrow's culture today. Okay. So the way you respond when that pressure becomes, the way you respond to that pressure becomes permission for everyone else. So there's another example I'm going to use here when it has to do with my son and his football team. There is a situation that kept unfolding for them with an unregulated coach because the coach was not regulated. It was like, the kids started getting permission to like act a little bit out of line because they're sitting in the osmosis. And then what we do as parents is we often turn and we say to the kid, oh, like, what's the deal? Like, why are you yelling? You can't be yelling, even though we're not looking at the very reason why they might be. So if you have a snap, the people around you might kind of fall victim to it, but then guess what they do? They fall victim to it, then they snap at the people under them. It's a cycle. Okay? I see this sometimes with men and women that I coach. Women will be really high achieving women. I coach a lot of high achieving women, and they'll be angry toward their husband, while they've got all the pressure of the work, and then the husband ends up yelling at the kids because he's lost a lot of his power with the wife. See how that dynamic works? See, this is one of the other major problems. We've really isolated these two things. We need to be smarter with the way that we lead, especially you members of hospitality leadership in hospitality leadership roles, because you have access to so many different people, so many different executives, so many different leaders in their own right, and guests, and in huge systems of people. So this is what it's all about. So the way you respond under pressure becomes permission for everybody else. So here is a wonderful integration exercise that we're going to do for the next 5 minutes. I want you to take out a piece of paper and pen if you haven't got one already with you. And I want you to write down my biggest leadership trigger is, I'll give you another second to get some pens. Okay, give me 1 sec. Okay, yep. Okay. Okay. My biggest leadership trigger is, and leave some space. We're going to go back to that in just a minute. So that's number one is my biggest leadership trigger is, and now I want you to write, which tool will I use first? Okay, leave some space. So your biggest leadership trigger is, let's say, complaints, conflict, staffing issues, overworking, slow performance, accountability conversations, feedback conversations, reporting to the board, reporting to your shareholders if they're involved. And now I want you to write, which tool will I use first? And we're going to go back to the three tools that we've identified today for you. The first one, which is pause the pattern, which is the 90-second rule. Okay, you need to give yourself 90 seconds before the emotion comes up to deal with it. Tool number two is name it to tame it. This is where you name the emotion and go deeper, one step deeper. I feel angry. I feel stressed. I feel frustrated. What else? What else do you feel? What else do you feel? And when you work with me privately, what we do is just beyond this by so much. With number two, we go really deep into the stories that you have so that we can clean all those up as well. And your team can be like, woof, like literally, I like to say it's like a group of kings and queens. And then last but not least, we've got tool number three, borrowing the future. How will I wish I handled this tomorrow? How will I wish I handled this in 6 months from now? Okay, so how will I wish that I handled this tomorrow? And how will I wish that I handled this 6 months from now? I did say it a little different at the beginning. I said, how will I have thought I did handling this 6 months from now? Or how will I handle this 6 months from now? But it's, you want to look back and say, okay, how do I wish that I handled that? Okay, I wish that I handled it with poise. I wish that I handled it with authority. I wish I handled it with mutual respect and grace. So these wonderful tools that you can use, those three major tools to answer the integration exercise question, which is my biggest leadership trigger is, you can do this at home as well. My biggest trigger at home is lack of respect, overwhelm with the kids, feeling like I'm not taking care of my body. Okay. And you want to ask yourself, what tool do I want to use first? And then from there, I'm going to invite you to start thinking about taking the next steps with me. Hospitality is emotional labor. People don't leave organizations because of one bad shift. They leave because stress becomes culture or because there's a lack of respect, and culture is created one interaction at a time. So the leaders who win the next decade will not be thinking about operational excellence. I touched on this when it came to AI. They're going to be emotionally intelligent. Your team feels your energy before they hear your words. Your guests feel the culture and the impact that you have and the experience with your service, and your ability to hold that level of authority and leadership and poise determines your ability to lead everybody else. And I'm so thrilled to take you there. If you're interested in hearing more about our emotional intelligence work with our EQ Accelerator or Intensive, which is when I come into your establishment and train your team, 10 executives receive the emotional intelligence test that I have. I give you a full action plan, all the data, everything you could think of, plus a resources pack. And then we cap it off at the very end with a 30-minute Zoom to make sure everybody is pumping and feeling really good. And from there, I give you even more action steps. I am so excited to hear from you and looking forward to serving you soon. Otherwise, enjoy this wonderful content. And yeah, as I said, those who take action now, trust me, you will be setting the tone for where leadership is going. Full stop, period, blank, no room for any questioning of that. EQ is the future. EQ stands for emotional intelligence, or EI, emotional intelligence, to sit alongside all the growth in artificial intelligence. As a hospitality leader, you definitely have one up that you may or may not be able to see right now, but you really can change the trajectory of legacy for yourself and for those who are in attendance at your clubs and your organizations. All right, we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.